Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, hi, this is Attican, and welcome to Railway Empire, Northern Europe, Hibernation, the Lady, Episode 7. Now, in Episode 6, we finished off several tasks. We bought out our competitors, all the rest of our competitors. We paid like $16 million for one, $91 million for the other one. Didn't bat an eye because we're in a very strong financial position. Before that, we had to buy, of course, access into Denmark, which we did. That was no problem. And so we've gotten that task out of the way. So then we had to run 20 passengers nonstop from Stockholm all the way over to Flensborg, Denmark. So we set up one big, long, expensive, dedicated line for that and got that done. And now we're repurposing part of that line for other uses and deleting the rest of it because we're just not going to run that big, long line anymore because the track is actually getting in the way of what we need to do in this episode, which is grow Denmark to 600,000 people. Now, it's over 500,000 when we start this. But our challenge, as I pointed out in the last episode, is that these are big cities, and if we're not getting any goods, they are going to start declining, and we will have a bunch of cities going into decline rather than growing. So we started out here in Copenhagen and Næstved and Odense, and we built a three-city cluster. We used a slight modification of what I call the Johnny Hughes pass-through warehouse three-city cluster, where we have the warehouse attached to the middle city, and then the other two cities grab goods out of that warehouse. So that one warehouse serves the entire three-city cluster, and then we have city-to-city lines to move the goods between them. So we've got that one almost finished off. We just got to get the logs in there, which is what we've been working on. And now we've got a good three-city cluster there, but we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 6 more cities that we've got to deal with. We've got Flensborg down here, and you see it's declining. That means we are losing people. You can see that city up there a little north of it. I've forgotten the name of it, and I can't quite see it, but it's declining. So what I'm doing right here is going back and finishing off that cleanup of that line. We've got all this track that we laid from Stockholm to Flensborg, and because I put supply towers on it, it actually divided it up into segments. And when you delete, you're only deleting each segment. So we've got to go back through, delete all the supply towers, and delete the track in order to clean all this up. The good news is we get refunds for all of this, so we're actually adding to our bank account right now and getting rid of this track that really has no purpose anymore. All right, looks like that's it. All right, so we did manage to keep part of the track to help us with running logs over to our three-city cluster at Næstved. And now, as I said, we've got to start working on the next 3 or 4 or 5 or however we want to do it. So we've got Flensborg dwindling. We've got whatever that city is above it. I can't read it. I really cannot read it. But we've got it dwindling. You see how it's red? Colding. Colding is dwindling, so we're losing ground. So every moment that we delay, we are losing people. So we're going backwards against our goal. So the whole thing with this is you can't just, as I said before, you can't just build a couple of cities up and think you're done, because you've got to stop all the rest of them from diminishing. So here's what we're doing with this. We took out that little temp station we had in there for the Stockholm line, and now we're going to put a large train station with auto signals. And I see right there, so some track that was underneath the supply tower that's left over. And I'm thinking there's probably little bits of track all the way up through there for every supply tower that I deleted. I'm not interested in going back and picking it all up. So it'll just sit there as a memorial to our line. All right, so now what we want to do is set up we're going to do another another little Johnny Hughes special here. So this one's going to be more classic. This is more the way I would do them typically. You'll see when we get it set up. But what we need is a station in each of the 3 cities. So we've got one in Flensburg. We're putting one in Colding. We've got our warehouse situated attached to Colding because it's going to be the middle city in our little 3-city cluster. So, of course, we double track, set our supply towers. And we set track going back to Flensburg from the warehouse. All right, looking good. Now the question is, where do we go next? Now, really, we could go to either one of those next 2 cities that are coming up to the north to finish out our 3-city cluster. And, of course, we could just build a 2-city cluster. That would work as well. But decided to go over there to the one that's more westward. And, again, I don't know the name of the city. Let's see if I can catch it there. Holstbro. So Holstbro is going to be our 3rd city. So we need a station there, and it won't let us. Why? It won't let us because we are disconnected from our network. Why is that? Because we deleted that track that ran to Stockholm, and now we don't have a connection to the rest of our network. But we are connected over to here to Odense. So we're just going to run a little line up here and plug it into Colding. Now all that is connected to our network, and we can go ahead and put our station up here in Holstbro. There we go. And we will run a line from Holstbro into the warehouse. And I contemplated moving that around that water, but I decided no, it's a little bridge, who cares? Make it a nice short straight line. It's worth it. So we'll run the line from Holstbro to the warehouse that's in Colding. Set up our supply towers for that. And we're missing one more line to make this a complete. We're going to run a line directly from the Colding train station to the Holstbro station. So we can just go over here and run parallel to the existing line, except when we get to that bridge, we're going to have to get off it a little bit and then come back over, because you can only build bridges 2 wide, as we've said before. So now we can plug in like so and double track that all the way back to Colding and realize I ran it off the wrong track. I've got it plugged into wrong end up here. And plugged into wrong platform. When needed to be off that farthest left platform, farthest west. Now we can double track back all the way up. There we go. It gives it a beautiful superhighway of track, and it gives us a direct connection from the city to the warehouse and the city to the next city. There we go. Now it's starting to look like a potential three-city network, a three-city cluster. But of course, the reason it isn't one is we don't have any supplies going into that warehouse, so we got to fix that. And we need to pick which one is going to be our meat producer, which I think the choice has already been made for us down there in Flensburg. There is a sausage industry. And you can see over here, look at this. We've got 2 of our 3 cities in our first 3-city cluster growing, and Odense was declining, and now it's back to neutral. So we're getting growth out of that cluster. This one here is declining, though, badly. So decline. Let's go up here and look at the third one, see if we're 3 for 3. Yes, we are. All 3 of those cities are declining. So they are probably losing at a faster rate than we're gaining in our original 3-city cluster. But not to worry, not to worry. If we keep methodically adding to our network and adding, taking care of these cities and putting them in clusters that promote growth, we'll be just fine. So now we're going to run wheat over there into the warehouse. And this one was a little bit tricky. And I could have gone, more up there and taken that route that I'd already made that track for and modified it to go in. But I just wanted to see, I wanted to take as direct a route as possible, really. And again, this is the kind of thing you wouldn't do early game when the money's really tight, but later game when the money's not the issue anymore, you can take some liberties with bridges and tunnels and what have you. And you don't like the big inclinations, but at the same time, it's not the end of the world. As long as your trains will move, you just want a steady flow of trains moving, going in there, hauling that freight. And if they have to slow down a bit, so what? And if you have to, run one more train. All right, so now we'll start hauling wheat over to our colding warehouse. All right, so now we've got one thing going in there at least. And since we're over here, let's see if we can't get that the fruit. Now, a lot of times I'll use a separate station, but here, since I've already put it down on this side, decided to just go ahead and expand that existing station, run a line out of platform 2, circle it around the 2 grain stations. Sorry, I keep calling it wheat. Grain stations, and hook into that line, and now it would be easy for us to run fruit over to that warehouse. Okay, there we go. Now we've got wheat and fruit. And why don't we grab milk? So that little track we built with the wheat is serving a lot of purposes here. So now we can run a couple trains and we've got milk going into that warehouse. So we've got wheat, we've got fruit, we've got milk. We need logs and fish and veggies. All right, there comes log. So we've got 4 items going in. We still need veggies. Is that it? Oh, and fish. We need fish. This one, the only fish is, the closest fish is way over there. That's going to be kind of clumsy. I'm looking at that and thinking, well, maybe this particular cluster can, our little colding cluster might just be able to do all right without the fish. And we'll revisit that if we're just a little shy on our growth. So here we're going to run trains back and forth, automatic trains. So this is a city-to-city line between Colding and Flensburg. So our 2 outers to the inner are both going to be city-to-city, but our outer-to-outer is going to be pass-through warehouse. So it's going to run Flensburg warehouse, Hostbro, or whatever that is up there, to warehouse. Yeah. Holstebro. So Holstebro to warehouse to Flensburg to warehouse. So that's going to be the line that will transport goods produced in those 2 cities to each other and top off with goods at the warehouse so that it supplies the raw materials that each of the 2 cities needs as well. So again, we can get away with the automatic and do some passengers and mail on the city to city from the outer 2 cities to the inner city because we don't have to pass through the warehouse and we can top it off with passengers and mail. And really what that does is now all of our trains will tend to be empty when they pull into their final, or sorry, the opposite of empty will be full when they pull into their final destination. So now we can put museum in each of those 3 cities. And there's 10% demand satisfaction right off the bat. So now really, if we can hit 51% with satisfaction, we can keep these cities growing because you're going to get 10% credit for the museum. And you'll notice all 3 of our cities now in our first cluster are growing. Now we've got a meat industry, so we want to have direct line of pigs going in to supply that city. And that's what this line will do. This line will take pigs into Flensburg. And that's going to be the meat producer for this 3-city cluster. So I was just checking the industries that we have, and up there in Holstbro, there's a distillery which takes veggies, and thought about it and decided, that's okay, we'll leave it. That's a good one. We can supply it directly. So what we're going to do here with the veggies is run a line to directly supply that industry. It's always a good practice whenever you can in your 3-city clusters or any 2, 3, 4, whatever you use. It's always a good idea to have a direct feed of supplies into the industry in that city. So, you know, in this case, we've got the need for the veggies. So we're going to run veggies to the warehouse because the other 2 cities need them. But we want to have an additional direct feed into Holstbro for that distillery. And as I've said before during this series, what that does is takes the pressure off your pass-through warehouse so that you don't have to be running veggies to Holstbro. You've already got those, and that makes it more efficient in terms of getting the other things that Holstbro needs out of that warehouse and running them up there to Holstbro. So this does several good things for us. Keeps the industry supplied, which is the biggie. Means we can keep shipping the aquavit to the other cities and help with their demand satisfaction. And lots of good things happen because of this. Now, I've gone back on the research back in era and actually started kind of tapped out our current era research. So I've gone backwards one. It does allow you to go backwards one. So you can see Flensburg is still diminishing. And it's got that candy factory in it, which just kind of sucks. And we already see we've got a tailor, a clothing industry in Colding, but this particular cluster does not have a weaver. So we're going to knock down that candy factory and we're going to put in a weaving industry in Flensburg. Now the wool, unfortunately, is a bit of a hike away, but that's okay. We can run the wool in there. We're going to move it up to a level 3-city cluster. It seems to work out well to have level 3 industries. And we're going to go up here to above Aarhus and grab cotton, or wool, wool, and we're in a warm climate, wool, and bring that wool down to, all the way down to Flensburg. And and we can ship it just right through Colding, not a problem. It'll just pass right through Colding. The line will just run right through Colding and keep going over to Flensburg to deliver wool into that city. I see some breakdown bad conditions, so we're just going to do a global replace. Take all those freight trains and replace them with freight trains, and all those holders that are running passengers and replace all the holders with more holders, newer ones. Now you can see that Flensburg is still declining, but it just needs to start getting some of that stuff in. And when it gets the wool, that'll help. But you'll notice also the Colding is actually growing. So our middle city is already growing. Right now, Odense is neutral, and Næstved and Copenhagen are both growing, and we are up at 531,000. We are gaining ground now. With the lady, we'll always take a market crier and we'll put them on comfort. That's where we get our bonuses. With the passengers, those breakdowns are holdovers. The trains haven't swapped out yet and gone on their way. So now we've got 2 more cities to deal with. We've got Aarhus, which we saw, and we've got what's the name of that one? Arberg, I think it is. Aalborg. So Aalborg and Aarhus. So I'm going to use a terminal station in Aalborg. That's kind of the end of the line here. We're going to do a 2-city cluster for these 2 with a pass-through warehouse, and we're going to put the warehouse on the wheat, or grain, so they can run through and pick up grain as they go back and forth. So this one is going to be kind of a classic 2-city cluster. And again, because we're disconnected here, we don't have a connection to our network with any of these lines, we're going to have to build a connection so that we can put that station in, because now that we've got that station up there in Aalborg, or God, these names are killing me. The AALT city, we've got the connection, and it's disjointed from our network. So we're going to build a little temporary connection here. There we go. Now it's connected, and now we'll be able to go into Aarhus and put a station there. And here that was a goof up. I didn't mind the terminal. I picked a terminal station, and I meant to get a terminal station with auto signals, with signaling control. So that was a goof. I'm pretty sure that comes back later if we correct that. But okay, we've got the station built now, so we don't need our temporary connection. And we're going to double track first of all. I almost went to the wrong one. We want to double track up to the warehouse. So we'll set up the warehouse to take those same 6 raw materials that we've been taking into all the rest of them. And of course, it automatically connects to that grain farm. And now we can run our pass-through lines. City, warehouse, city, warehouse. And we're going to run freight only because we don't want a lot of passenger traffic in there taking up space. It's very important that we have enough trains running so that we can get all the goods from the warehouse back to the cities, in addition to the items that are manufactured in our 2 cities. So we'll run 4 in each direction, or starting at each end. So a total of 8 trains running city to city. Then, since we're not going to haul any passengers or mail, we're going to go ahead and set up another line that's a direct city to city without the warehouse. This is just extra money right here. This is going to make extra money. And here we could either run it as a passenger mail only, or we could run it as an automatic line, either one. If you ran it automatic, it would actually take some of the pressure off of your pass-through warehouse line, because it would take some of the manufactured goods up itself. And I think, yeah, it looks like that's what I'm going to do. We're going to run it as an automatic. I could tell you the truth, I couldn't remember if I ran it as automatic. Could have done it as a dedicated passenger line just as easily. So we're just running a couple of trains in each direction, total of 4. And notice that first load going out there with passengers and mail. So there we go. There's a 2-city cluster with a pass-through warehouse. That right there is a 3-city cluster with a Johnny Hughes setup, and the other one is also a 3-city cluster with the Johnny Hughes setup. So now we're going to go out and start filling up that warehouse. It only has the wheat in it right now. So we'll grab some fish. And I was thinking I would go connect into the back of the Aalborg station, or just swing around. And then I realized when I've got to swing around, it's a terminal station. And then I realized, wait a minute, this is the wrong side. If I swing in on this side, I'm going to have to cross over. So I'm going to redo that and come in from the west, because that's the western set of 2 tracks going down through there are the ones that go to the warehouse. The easternmost tracks, set of 2, are the city-to-city line. That's not what we're trying to hit. We're trying to hit the warehouse. Okay, so there's fish. We've got fish, we've got wheat. And we also notice that right there, there's both a textile business and a clothing business in Aarhus. So that's a perfect deal where we can pump wool down there and satisfy 2 of those 3 businesses in Aarhus. So we're going to put in a little single station here, because that's all we need. Just rather than trying to overload or complicate the load into that bigger station, we'll just put a little station in here, and its sole purpose in life will be to receive the wool that comes in from that sheep farm up there. So now we've got the wool coming into Aarhus, and that'll supply textiles and clothing. And we really, the only thing, the weakness of that 2-city cluster, you can see we're up to 535, so we're starting to grow. That entire first 3-city cluster, all 3 cities are growing very, very nicely, in spite of the fact that there's a porcelain a porcelain manufactory in Nestved, but not for long. Bye-bye. And we're going to replace it with a tailor, which we're then going to expand to level 3. Now that tailor will automatically get the wool, or the cloth that's created by that weaving factory over there. And in fact, we're going to make sure by expanding that weaving factory up to a level 3, and then we're looking to say, okay, well, if you've got a weaving factory there, let's make sure it has wool. So that little temporary line that we built way back when to connect colding into our network, we're now going to repurpose that line and use it to hook into Odents and give us a wool line directly into Odents. So that wool up there is becoming very important as it's feeding all three clusters. So we're going to expand that station and give it a dedicated line and come out here and give it kind of some, let's call it ramp speed. We want to give it some room so that well, you know what? I'm describing it now. I recall what I did. I started to do that and didn't like it because it was getting too close to the city down there. So I'm going to just put in yet another station. So there's 3 stations around that wool, but that's important wool. So there's 1 station for each of the clusters that it serves. So this particular one is going to load, run full, and go all the way down to Odents and feed our original 3-city cluster. And I apologize if the sound seems like it's slightly off on this one. I think it's slightly out of sync. I don't have a clue why. Sometimes that's what it sounds like to me when I'm playing, but I think this really is, the recording is off very slight, the system sounds. So I apologize for that, but to try to fix it is just, it's a nightmare. No, I'm not going there. All right, so we got great growth. There's 4 straight growing, 1 neutral, 2 neutral, 1 decline. And look here, we can put a museum in Aarhus. That'll help a little bit. And another decline here. So our last cluster, and here comes our last warehouse. So now we've got warehouses in that last 2-city cluster in both of them. And we're just waiting for the goods to start showing up. It takes a while for these clusters to fire up and all those trains to get through and, you know, all the goods to come in. We're also missing veggies up there, so we're going to run a veggie line up to this our 2-city cluster. Okay, there we go. Now we've got wheat, we've got fish, we've got veggies. We could use some logs and milk and fruit. Well, lo and behold, there's milk. So I'm trying to figure out what route do I want to use to get that milk up there. So what we're going to do is do a little connection here between the line, the Aarhus to the warehouse line, and the basically our wool line. that signal is too close to the intersection. Now all we have to do is connect that milk line to the Odense wool line, and we've got the ability to run milk all the way up to our two-city cluster warehouse. So you saw me buy the wool farm and bump it up. I'm going to do the same thing here. The computer owners are just too slow. We've got to get that milk production up because it's got to produce for a couple of different clusters. And then we need to get milk into 2 different warehouses out of there and feed a total of 5 cities. They're slowly starting to get some. And you can see colding up there growing right above it. It's beautiful. We're starting to make headway. We're at 553,000 against our 600,000 target. And lovely, a promoter will sick him an Aalborg. That was actually a mistake. As soon as I did it, I said, why did you do that? You don't get as much benefit when you put the promoter on one of those, a city in decline. It would have been better actually to put it on a city that was in the process of growing right now. We would have gotten more bang for our buck. We have diminished the decline, but we didn't get as much out of it as we could have. So now we're going to, I was going to put a bakery in there and realize, nope, that ain't going to work. So I'm going to put a sausage maker in Aalborg. And we're going to run some pigs from way down south all the way up to Aalborg. The problem with that 2-city cluster up there, one of the biggest failings it has, is you need, of course, the meat and bread in this Northern Europe supply chain, and it does have bread, and we're finally starting to get some wheat up there to help with that, but there's no meat supply anywhere. Meat is fundamental for all these cities, so we're going to run a line up here and link it into our system so that we can deliver some pigs directly into Aalborg, and that'll produce meat for Aalborg and Aarhus. You'll notice too, I'm not using the special cars like the refrigerator car. Again, I would rather when my whole goal is to grow a city, and the money is not the problem anymore. I don't care about that bonus as much as I care about getting 8 pigs up there. I'd rather get 8 pigs up there and make a little less money than get 7 pigs up there and make a little more money. So I'm intentionally not running the refrigerator cars And I'm also on the city-to-city lines in these clusters. You don't run your caboose and dining car and stuff, because what you're really trying to do is get and move goods, and any passengers and mail that you move is just a bonus. So you don't want to take up space off your train, because this game limits you to total of 8 cars, and those specialty cars count against your 8. So if you're adding a caboose and a dining car and a refrigerator car, you can't run any goods. So let's see how we did here. I'm anxious to see how we did as a total score.
One has to grant you, you are always full steam ahead. Your D.
Oh, sorry, buddy. I didn't mean to cut you off. Well, we got 8 out of 8 and 20 out of 20, a perfect score. That's part of doing it much better. Finished it in 12 years, 3 months. Company value of around $430 million. Nice. It's a very nice scenario. I totally enjoyed playing it. I think there were parts of it I made it look a lot easier than it really was. So I apologize for that. That was not easy. But I was very happy with the play. I'm happy to have been able to share that with you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player. I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe, and join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.